Hello everyone, I am Anbu Varadhan, President of UFI. I am pleased to introduce UFI's Global Policy Leadership series. In these sessions, you will hear directly from leaders and senior officials from economic, trade, and tourism ministries and departments all around the world. The leaders would focus on the economic vision for their country and the role the exhibitions and business events play in driving the economy, both to build back better and to support a resilient and sustainable future.
Hello and welcome to this edition of our Global Policy Leadership Series. It's actually the first one we are recording in real life, face-to-face, on-site, in a physical environment, as we are in Singapore, where we held the Global Leadership Summit of the AEO, Sasio Saiso and UFI this week. Today I'm speaking with Minister Alvin Tan of the Ministry of Trade, and we will discuss the reopening protocols in Singapore and the input from test events and pilot events that bring back international delegations and business travelers to Singapore, as we are doing here this week. Minister, thanks for taking the time to be part of our Global Policy Leadership Series. And I have to say I'm super happy because this is the first of these interviews we actually get to do face-to-face in person here in Singapore.
That's wonderful. Welcome to Singapore, Kai. You were here yesterday for the Joint Leadership Summit. And it was a big day yesterday because we managed to anchor the new Asia CEO Summit here in Singapore. So a big thank you to UFI, to CISO, to AEO and SASIOS. I think I got all the alphabets correct, but this is a major announcement for Singapore because it anchors the Asia CEO Summit here for the next 3 years. So thank you.
And we are very happy to bring the industry to this region because it is such a potential for growth to connect the industries we serve with their global peers. And to do that, you need to run the marketplaces and the meeting places in locations that are accessible and generally accepted for the quality and collaboration. So thank you for doing what you're doing for the industry.
I think what was really important yesterday was the opportunity to bring together all of the world's leading organizations and trade associations involved in the event space. It's important because it sends a very strong signal that the event space is raring to go, gearing up, and also interested in the Asia Pacific, of which Singapore is the center and the strategic center.
So we are hopefully coming out of what has been a life-changing pandemic. Life-changing for people, for industries, for countries. What is Singapore's plan to rebuild after COVID on the economy side?
In Singapore, we are looking to deal with the pandemic in a way in which it minimizes the loss of life, it minimizes the strain on the healthcare system, and it enables people to get on with their lives as easily and as normal as possible. Of course, that's not always the case, that's not always easy, but as of now, we've reached 84% full vaccination rate, which is one of the highest in the world. We have already administered about 240,000 boosters, and we are accelerating the booster program. We are effectively about 90+% eligible vaccination, save for those, for example, those under 12. And this is important. It gives us that base and a foundation for us to open up.
And indeed, so you've been able to vaccinate your population in just a few months over the summer, and that is amazing. And that kind of brings you to the next chapter. You've given the life vests so people can handle the waves. So how do you build back the economy after the hit you took?
This year, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has projected a 6 to 7% growth in GDP. But there are other aspects in the figures which are quite important. $17.2 billion in fixed asset investments in 2020. We had $2.6 billion in fixed asset investments in Q1 this year and then $3.6 in Q2 this year. So we're trending pretty well, particularly the outward-facing sectors. But as we always say, there is a bit of that K-shaped curve. There are industries which are doing well, including in finance, technology, manufacturing, but then there are, of course, industries that are not doing very well, including in the aviation, the tourism, and in many aspects, the MICE sector as well. So for those that are doing well, we need to give them boosters, really in a way in which we let them fly. For those that are not doing so well, we need to give them a bit of that kick as well. Boosters in another form, in terms of making sure that they can transform quickly in terms of digitalization. We've had hybrid events, but also provide intermediate and immediate life support in terms of wage subsidy schemes, which we've called the job support scheme, which helps to pay in some degree some wages for local wages. And it helps to preserve jobs, preserve capabilities, such that when it picks up again, when travel picks up, when normal life resumes, they're ready to go, raring to go, and they're ready to shoot off.
Well, now, business events are generally these boosters for industries.
That's right.
Right. So
very much so.
We have two roles to play here as an industry. Number one, we are an industry on the lower part of your K-shaped business model. Yes. And on the other hand, we are probably your best tool in the arsenal of boosters to help these well-doing industries to fly and to bring back the others. So which role can the MICE industry and especially the business events industry play to drive this K-shaped recovery and to help the lower part of the K to turn the tide?
And there is pent-up demand. The business events can certainly help us to turn the tide. If you look at the opportunity set, there are estimates that in Asia, the MICE industry accounts for maybe about 240 billion industry. It's about to hit maybe about double of that, 440 or 450 billion by 2025. So the opportunity set is there. And by turning the tide, you're also going head into a bigger opportunity set. In Singapore, it accounts for about, pre-COVID, about 33,400 jobs, about 0.8% of our GDP, I think about $3.8 billion worth, Singapore dollars, worth of value add. So we are very clear in terms of the opportunity set in Asia and also the opportunity set in Singapore. So MICE is strategic, not just for us as an economy, but it's also strategic in a regional play and also a global play. And Singapore has a unique position, not just in our geography, but in the way that we are a hub status or a hub for Southeast Asia, the ASEAN economies, and also East Asia, Asia Pacific down to Oceania, but also at the intersection between Asia, Europe, Asia, and America. So we want to retain that hub status. We know the opportunity set is beyond us in terms of beyond our shores. And I think once we make sure that all of these different capabilities are secured, jobs, digitalization, and the ability to open up, I think we are ready to fly.
So what's your government doing then to put us onto that board to go and ride that wave? Because obviously, as we've seen with the industry's leaders here from the US, from the UK, from Europe, from the Middle East, being able to come to Singapore this week for this event, we were sadly missing our colleagues from Southeast Asia. And that's a matter of reopening travel and aligning health and safety protocols around quarantines when you go somewhere and when you return somewhere. How can we change that as fast as possible? What's the opportunity to push for that regional reopening, and in which way can we work together between industry and governments?
We need to reopen the MICE industry, and we've done so in a calibrated manner. For example, last year we launched this Safe Business Framework. We also have an Alliance for Action, effectively pulling together industry to come together to see how we can have safe and innovative visitor experiences. And with these kinds of initiatives, we are learning how to build muscle in our MICE industry in a very difficult time of the pandemic. We are helping them with digitalization, we're helping them to learn, and actually they are teaching us too. How do you make sure and factor in safe experiences within a conference, a MICE event? And those we have learned. So that's opening the MICE sector. Right now, we are piloting 4 big events. Yesterday, we had one called the Joint Leadership Summit. We will have 3 more where we are piloting some of these initiatives or some of these protocols. We have GamesCon, which is going to come next week. We have the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. We have ITAP. And we have specifically these pilots to enable us to grow that muscle, to build it, and to gain confidence. And then to your question, which is actually the biggest question, Kai, it's how do you then open travel? We discussed the vaccinated travel lanes. Now we have 2, Germany, Singapore, and then Singapore, Brunei. We have also categorized countries according to the rate of how they have handled the pandemic. And it's not just the cases, but vaccination rates and also fatality rates. And then we classified them into 4 categories. We have since yesterday, which is, by the way, 6th of October, then reduced the stay-home notice, or basically the quarantine period, from 14 to 10 to take into account the incubation period of the Delta variant. We have also ensured that how you are determined as a traveler is now how long you've spent in a particular country for 14 days instead of 21 days. So we are constantly making dynamic transitions. But the crux of the matter and the crux of this issue that you mentioned is how do we make sure that we open up in a way which is bilateral and multilateral. And in that case, there are a few ways that we need to do. The first is to continually have that discussion with different countries, and we've had that with Australia, with Hong Kong and the likes. The second is to also do our part to help our region deal with the virus. So we've had a vaccine swap agreement with Australia, for example, and we've also given oxygen concentrators to Indonesia and oxygen, masks, vaccines to our neighbors to help them combat the virus. Because if they are on a better footing and we are on a better footing, then you can have that bridge and you can open more of these travel lanes.
Do you foresee a situation where Singapore can say, if we reach this point, then that type of events will take place based on the pilot events and test events you've done over the last year? Because that will instill a lot of confidence in the organizers to tell their customers, the exhibitors, that an event will be likely take place if these and these measures or markers are met.
Yes.
So what is it that Singapore can offer, using your strength of planning and experience, to give an answer to these organizers and their customers who are really struggling to keep their shows scheduled and who will really struggle to redesign, to change the date, to move it further down the line, to replan everything, with their constituencies, the exhibiting companies, struggling to be able to commit because they face the same uncertainty?
Well, Kai, from one planner to another, I think the Singapore government has, over the years, been very much in planning mode. And that has been the case for a majority of the way in which we've done things since independence, 56 years ago. And we have learned from different crises. If you look at the last 20-odd years, you have a variety of crises. You have the dot-com crisis, you have 9/11, you have SARS, you have the global financial crisis, and then now you have, I think all of that almost rolled into one. One of the big reference points is SARS. And we have then learned the lessons from SARS, which is, now if you compare it, it's comparatively a different order of magnitude or a different scale altogether. COVID is very, very much different. But we have learned from that, we've planned for the next pandemic. COVID has come, we've put in place a few of these things to help us to deal with the crisis better. But COVID has constantly thrown up new curveballs, constantly thrown up new surprises, constantly thrown up new variants. And we've had to adjust. As you know, as a planner, you plan, and then you plan contingencies. What happens if the light doesn't work? You have different chairs, speakers fall out at last minute, and the likes. And so we need to do so. I think we've done generally well vis-a-vis others, but we can do better in many different regards. So this is something which we have to continue to push on. I shared specifically what we are trying to do. And I think you hit the nail on the head, because the business travel community are the ones that would know how best to travel, know how best to adhere to compliance guidelines, to safety guidelines. And the MICE industry, because you are already planners and you have that in your DNA, you would know how to put in all of these different safe visitor and safe travel experiences into your planning parameters and your planning protocols. And that is why we internally are also pushing for us to ensure that MICE is open as far as possible. I've given you 4 examples of these pilots. Yesterday's Joint Leadership Summit was a success. I would classify that. We have 3 others coming in close order. We're constantly learning, and it gives us the opportunity to open up more. So it is a dynamic situation. We learn from every single event that we are piloting, and then it gives us the confidence to open up a little bit more or to put in protocols so that it is much safer. You mentioned earlier on that the business traveler is here to do business. Absolutely right. But we also want ultimately the business traveler to also explore the other sights, sounds of Singapore. So we are not content just to say you come in, you do your business, and you go out. For now, I think in some instances that is necessary, but we want to look further. We want to go back to the days where the business traveler also spends time here to see the sights and sounds, taking the arts and the culture, and then also to have a good experience when they come to Singapore. It's basically back to the good old days. But we are a few steps to that, but we are making sure that the steps that we take will help us put ourselves in good stead to open up.
Good to hear. So how can we as an industry then support you as the government to do that bodybuilding and build that muscle?
Yeah. Run with us. Tell us when we need some spotting, just to use the gym analogy. Tell us where we need maybe our running gait. You're a runner, Kai. Our running gait is a little bit off. But also let us know, what kind of nutrients we might need, what kind of supplements we might need to make sure that our events is safe, to make sure that we can also send the right signal as we open up, as we have all of these different pilots, that we send the signal to local smaller MICE players, to regional bigger MICE players, to international MICE players, that Singapore is ready to go, ready to test, ready to open up to more of these different MICE events, so that because these MICE events are important, because you ultimately want face-to-face. I think this is that building block for us to build confidence. But at the same time, with the proviso that the virus can change at any time, so we need to be nimble, need to be flexible. But as long as we make sure that we have the right protocols in place, which the private sector can teach us and say, I think this is what I've learned from this event in Vegas or Dubai or London, then we can learn from the best, put that into our protocol, and then have a good, safe, and successful MICE event.
In that you can be sure you have a good partner with the industry, with the all secure standards we develop with the UFI global framework, and SASIOS applied all those in dialogue with STB and your government to facilitate the development of your regulations here. So we will do whatever it takes to bring business back to Singapore, if you help us to be able to bring the people here and to host the events and secure these frameworks that we can convince our customers that it's worth making the trip, and there's risk mitigation, of course, but it's more likely that they will have a successful show.
Yes.
Pending us needing to replan because of another curveball.
Yes.
And that everybody understands.
Yes.
Everybody understands the challenges of the curveballs. But what people are looking for is that confidence from governments, from destinations, and the organizers to say, we will do whatever we can to make this happen.
And the long-term trend is that we want to open up. I think many different countries want to do so. But when we say we're doing it in a calibrated manner, it means that we are serious about it and at some cost. Let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. We are aggressively testing. We're searching for the virus, making sure that those that are ill get the proper treatment. But we are also changing the paradigm such that if you are ill now, but you are vaccinated, you're protected, you rest at home. The figures that you see in terms of what Singapore has reported may look a little bit higher than our usual baseline or our usual maybe median case line. But it's only because we are testing aggressively. It's only because the Delta variant is coming or has already hit our shores and actually hit 190 plus countries. But the difference, the core difference, is our vaccination rate, our booster rate. And if we get past this hump, I think we'll be in much better shape because Singaporeans, our PRs, and people who are living here, working here, they will then get both vaccine-induced immunity, and for those who have battled the virus, they will also get natural immunity. So I think this is the short, intermediate term gain. But parallel to that is making sure that MICE events, because most MICE events will now be open for vaccinated people, and then you have all of the SMM, safe management measures or safety measures in place. So you can make the argument that it is much safer. It's a much controlled environment. It's a much safer, steady environment for us to exchange, for us to meet, for us to do business.
Last question, ask you, what is the event you're really looking forward to on the other side of this wave?
Yeah, well, there are many. I would say next week we have GamesCon. I am a virtual player too, so I'm looking forward to hopefully attend and to see how we're coping with. That's one of the 4 pilot events that we are holding in Singapore. Sporting events also. I mean, sporting events, for example, football events. I mean, I have another hat which is the sports hat, and I just attended a local football game. Singapore football is not too bad, not as good as the Germans, but it was wonderful.
Not as good as the Germans used to be.
Surely you kid. But certainly it was quite an experience. I brought my son to a football event, and nothing beats seeing the players at that speed, controlling the ball at that distance. So GamesCon first. I've shared with you the others that we're looking for, ITAP, the Milken Institute. Bloomberg in the New Economy Forum is something which I'm very much looking forward because of all of the luminaries coming or presenting thought leadership ideas. So I think there's no shortage, but we need to stay the course. We need to make sure that these events can continue to be anchored in Singapore, and we do it in a safe, calibrated way in which people can interact, learn from one another, and also to do business with one another.
Minister, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kai. Very happy to be here.
We will be showing you these sessions throughout the year and from countries around the globe to showcase the true global picture of our dynamic, wide-ranging, and multifaceted industry. I hope you enjoy this discussion.